I remember the day that kid showed up like it was yesterday, even though it's been years since those godforsaken islands tried to swallow us whole. It was late October, 1944, and we'd been slogging through the muck on Leyte for what felt like an eternity already. MacArthur had made good on his promise. He'd waded ashore with that corncob pipe clenched in his teeth, declaring, "I have returned." And here we were, the poor bastards paying the tab for his homecoming. The 41st Division, the Jungliers, that's what they called us. Jungle was right, it wasn't a forest. It was a living, breathing beast that hated you down to your dog tags. Vines thick as your arm, dangling from trees that blocked out the sun, turning everything into a green-tinted hell. The air hung heavy, like breathing through a wet rag, and every step sucked at your boots like the ground itself wanted to pull you under. Malaria was our constant shadow. And the Japs, those fanatical sons of the Emperor, lurked in the underbrush, waiting to turn you into fertilizer. My name's Frank Malone, but the boys called me Preacher. Not because I spouted Bible verses. Hell, the last time I'd cracked a good book was back in basic. And that was just to prop up a wobbly table. No, it stuck because back in training, I'd given this raw recruit a dressing down so fierce he swore I was channeling the wrath of God. Malone's got a voice like Judgment Day, he said. I was 38 then, old enough to have seen too much and young enough to still feel the burn of it all. I'd come up through North Africa with the big red one, dodged Rommel's tricks in the sand, then shipped out to the Pacific after Sicily. By Leyte, my platoon was down to 22 men from the original 48. Good men, mostly. Hardened, like leather left too long in the rain. We didn't talk about home much. It was a distraction, and distractions got you killed. But in the quiet moments, when the rain drummed on the ponchos like impatient fingers, you'd catch a guy staring off, probably picturing his girl's smile or his ma's apple pie. Me? I thought about the ones we'd lost. Faces that blurred in the memory but never quite faded. Captain Thompson, we called him Iron Mike, was the glue holding us together. A West Pointer class of 39, with a jaw like a Sherman tank and eyes that could spot bullshit from a mile out. He wasn't one of those chair-polishing types. He'd gotten his from a Jap bayonet on New Guinea, a scar running down his cheek that made him look like he'd argued with a zipper and lost. Malone, he'd say, keep these boys alive long enough to see Tokyo burn. I nodded, but inside, I knew the truth. In this war, keeping them alive was like herding cats in a hurricane. We had our share of characters. There was Tex Jenkins, a lanky Texan from Amarillo with a drawl that could charm the rust off a 50 cal. He was our scout, quick with a quip and quicker with a knife. Preacher, if the Japs don't get us, this humidity will boil our brains, he'd gripe, wiping sweat from his Stetson. Yeah, he somehow kept that damn thing through Guadalcanal. Then Doc Rivera, a Puerto Rican kid from Brooklyn who'd studied pharmacy before the draft scooped him up. He patched us together with sulfa powder and prayers, his hands steady even when the shells were whistling overhead. And Preacher, I was the one who made sure they didn't do anything stupider than necessary. Yelled when they needed it, covered when they couldn't. That's what a sergeant does. You don't get medals for it. You get gray hairs and a liver pickled in rot gut. The replenishment boat had pulled in at dawn, a flat-bottomed LST that looked like it had been chewed up by sharks and spat out. We were humped up on a ridge overlooking the Ormoc Valley, the kind of spot where you could see for miles if the vines didn't choke your view. The Japs had dug in deep along the river lines, turning every trail into a potential kill zone. We'd taken a beating the week before. Lost 3 to a sniper who picked us off like coconuts from a palm. Iron Mike had us digging in, foxholes reinforced with bamboo and fronds to break up the outline. It was grunt work, the kind that turned your hands to raw meat, but it kept your mind off the what-ifs. That's when the runner from battalion showed up, a scrawny corporal with mud caked to his knees. Replacements, Sarge. One for your platoon. Just one, I thought, like we were patching a tire with a Band-Aid. But that's how it went in the islands. Dribbles of green meat to feed the grinder. I trudged down the trail to the CP, where the new blood was supposed to muster. The path was a slurry of red clay and rotting leaves, sucking at my boots with every step. Flies buzzed around my head like dive bombers, and the smell, Christ, the smell. Rotting vegetation mixed with unwashed bodies and the faint, acrid tang of cordite from yesterday's skirmish. My pack rode heavy on my shoulders, the straps digging into flesh softened by sweat. Inside was the usual, extra clips for the Gran, a couple K rations that tasted like cardboard regret, and a photo of my wife Elsie, folded so many times it was tissue thin. She wrote every week, letters full of nothing and everything. How the Victory Garden was coming along, how little Frankie was starting school. I hadn't seen them since 42. Sometimes I wondered if I'd recognize the kid. There he was, standing at the edge of the clearing like a lost fawn in a wolf den. Private Thomas Begay, Tommy to his ma, I guessed. 19 years old, straight out of Fort Benning, with skin the color of burnished copper and black hair cropped close under his helmet. Navajo from the look of him. The dog tags confirmed it. He was kitted out in starched fatigues that hung loose on his frame, not yet shrunk from the wash. His pack was slung over one shoulder, bulging like he'd packed for a stateside picnic. And there in his hands, the M1 Garand, gleaming like it was fresh off the line at Springfield. The rest of us looked like we'd been dragged through a hedge backward. Beards scruffy, uniforms patched with tape, faces etched with lines that no razor could shave away. Tex was leaning against a tree, rolling a smoke, his eyes narrowing as the kid approached. Doc was nearby, sorting morphine syrettes, and he glanced up with that half-smile he reserved for rookies. "Private Begay reporting, Sergeant," the kid said, snapping a salute so crisp it could cut glass. His voice was steady, but his eyes, wide as saucers, darted around like he was mapping escape routes. The jungle does that to you first time out. It's not the openness of a field. It's the closeness, the way the green walls press in, whispering threats in the wind. I didn't return the salute. Never did with replacements. It sets the wrong tone. "At ease, Private. Drop your gear and stand for inspection." He fumbled with the straps, and that's when it happened. The Garand slipped from his grip, clattering to the ground like a dropped spoon at a funeral. The bolt pinged against a rock, and for a second, everything went quiet. Tex let out a low whistle, and Doc chuckled, shaking his head. The kid's face flushed darker than the clay underfoot, and he snatched it up, brushing off the barrel like he'd wounded a lover. "Sorry, Sarge. Slippery hands." I stepped closer, close enough to smell the fresh soap on him. Luxury we hadn't seen since Oro Bay. Slippery hands get men killed, Begay. That rifle's your lifeline, not a goddamn umbrella. You drop it in the field, and it's not just you picking up the pieces, it's the guy next to you. My voice came out gravelly, the way it did when I was holding back the urge to unload. He nodded, eyes down, and I walked around him slow, like circling a suspect. His web gear was cinched too tight over the pack, the canteen dangling loose enough to slosh on a march, ammo pouches half empty. 8 clips, standard issue, but arranged like he'd read about it in a manual, not lived it. Boots polished to a shine that'd reflect a flare. Polished. In the jungle. I almost laughed, but it stuck in my throat like bad chow. Listen up, son. This ain't Kansas, or wherever the hell you're from. Out here, the enemy don't announce himself with a bugle. He waits in the vines with a Type 99 aimed at your soft spots. You move quiet, you think ahead, and you never, ever let your guard down. Got it? Yes, sir. Navajo Reservation, actually, Sergeant. Back in Arizona. Navajo. That explained the sharp features, the quiet way he held himself, like he was listening to something the rest of us couldn't hear. I'd heard about the code talkers, those boys using their language to baffle the Japs on the radios. Smart as whips they were. But this one looked like he'd blow away in a stiff breeze. Reservation, huh? Well, out here, the only code you'll need is duck and cover. Now gear up. We're moving out at dusk. He shouldered his pack, and that's when I saw it, the weight. It sagged him forward, straps biting into his shoulders like ill-fitting suspenders. Probably loaded with every comfort from home, extra socks, a Bible, maybe a lucky rabbit's foot. We veterans traveled light. Experience teaches you that sentiment weighs more than sin. Tex sidled up as the kid shuffled off to dig his hole. Preacher, that boy's greener than a paymaster's promise. Reckon he'll last a week? I spat into the underbrush, watching a column of ants march over the spot like they owned it. Week? If we're lucky? Battalion's scraping the bottom of the barrel these days. Ike's pushing for Europe, and we're the afterthought, mopping up Hirohito's backyard. Tex grunted agreement, lighting his lucky strike with a Zippo that had Tex etched on the side. We didn't say more, no need. The jungle had ears. Dusk came like a thief, the sun bleeding orange through the canopy before vanishing into the black. We humped single file down the trail, Garands at low port, bayonets fixed, because you never knew when it'd come to that. The air cooled just enough to raise goose flesh under the sweat-soaked shirts, but the humidity clung like a bad habit. Frogs chorused from the puddles, a sound that grated after days without sleep. I took point with Tex on drag, and Begay slotted in third, right behind Doc. Iron Mike was up with the platoon leaders, coordinating with the company's CP via walkie-talkie. Static crackled now and then. Eagle 6, this is Viper 3 actual. Japs pulling back to the river line. Watch for bunkers. The march was routine misery. Roots snaked across the path like tripwires, and every snap of a twig had you freezing, finger hovering over the trigger. My Grand felt like an extension of my arm. 8 rounds of 30-06, bolt slick from use, the woodstock scarred from a dozen bayonet drills. I'd named her Elsie when after the wife. Stupid, maybe, but it made the weight bearable. Begay, though. He clomped along like a blind elephant. His pack straps creaked, the canteen banging against his thigh with every step. Thud, thud, like a metronome counting down to disaster. I glanced back once, saw him struggling, sweat beading on his forehead despite the dim light. His eyes were locked on the ground, missing the shadows that danced in the periphery. Quiet, Private, I hissed over my shoulder. Low enough not to carry. He startled, nearly tripping into Doc. The Puerto Rican shot me a look, sympathy mixed with exasperation. Sorry, Sarge, the kid whispered, adjusting his gear. But it happened again 5 minutes later. A branch cracked under his boot, loud as a flare pistol in the hush. Heads turned. Even the point man paused. In the jungle, noise was currency, and we were spending it like drunks on payday. By the time we hit the stream crossing, an ankle-deep ribbon of brown water choked with ferns, the irritation had festered into something sharper. We spread out to refill canteens, the metallic tang of iodine tablets hitting the air as we purified the muck. Begay knelt at the edge, fumbling with his cup, splashing more than he caught. "That's how deep you reckon this goes, Sarge?" he asked, voice pitched too high, too eager. Like we were on a nature hike. I straightened, water dripping from my fingers. Deep enough to drown a fool who asks questions instead of shutting up and listening. You see that current? It's got teeth. Sucks you under if you fight it. Step light, test with the butt of your rifle. And for Christ's sake, keep that chatter down. Jap's got ears like bats. He nodded, chastened, but the damage was done. Tex, filling his own canteen upstream, muttered under his breath, "Kid's gonna get us all tuned in before breakfast." Doc clapped him on the shoulder, gentle the way he did with the walking wounded. "Give him time, Tex. We were all green once." "Speak for yourself, Doc," Tex replied, but there was no heat in it. Me? I felt the old anger stir, the kind that came from bearing too many friends. This war wasn't for questions. It was for answers delivered at 800 feet per second. Begay's innocence grated because it reminded me of the boys we'd lost, the ones who'd asked why. Right before the world exploded, we pushed on, the trail narrowing to a goat path that wound uphill toward our night position. Moonlight filtered through the leaves in silver shafts, turning the world ghostly. My calves burned from the incline, a familiar ache that I'd ignore until it screamed. That's when the first questions started tumbling out of him, like he'd saved them up for the dark. "Sarge, how long you been out here? What's the worst you've seen? Do the Japs really fight to the last man like they say?" I didn't turn. No need for him to see the scowl. Long enough to know better than to jaw in the column, Private. Save your breath for the march. And yeah, they fight to the last. Banzai charges at dawn, snipers in the trees at dusk. You'll learn soon enough. But he didn't stop. Next was about chow. These K rations, they got anything better than Spam and crackers? Ma sent me some jerky once, but it got ruined in the hold. Tex snorted ahead, audible even over the crickets. I bit back a retort. Jerky. Like we hadn't been chewing on the same canned ham for weeks, the kind that turned your guts to water. By the time we crested the hill, a bald knob of rock overgrown with ferns, the platoon was strung out, tempers frayed. Iron Mike called a halt, and we dropped packs in a perimeter, Garans stacked in pairs. Fire detail went out for deadwood, dry stuff only, no smoke to betray us. Begay hovered at the edge, unpacking his gear like it was Christmas. Out came a wool blanket, folded neat as a pin. Wool. In the tropics. I'd have laughed if I wasn't so damn tired. "Private," I said, hunkering down beside him, "you planning on suffocating in your sleep? That thing's a Jap magnet, holds heat like a fever rag." He blinked, folding it away. "Didn't think—" "Sorry, Sarge. Just cold at night back home." Cold. The word hung absurd in the steam bath air. I shook my head, pulling out my own shelter half, tattered, patched with vine. Home's a long swim away. Here it's poncho and prayer. Dig your hole deep, 2 feet at least, with overhead cover. Rain comes sideways in these parts. He set to it with his entrenching tool, the blade ringing off roots like he was mining coal. Chips flew, but progress was slow. The kid swung wild, more effort than efficiency. Doc wandered over, offering a tip. Angle the sides, he-ho, like a foxhole back home, sloped so the water runs off. Begay nodded gratefully, but 10 minutes in, he'd barely scratched the surface. Sweat poured off him, mixing with the red dirt to paint streaks down his arms. I watched from my own hole, already half dug, the rhythm of shovel and soil as familiar as breathing. This was the real training, not the parade ground bullshit at Benning. Out here you learned to float belly up in a river. Night fell full, the stars punching holes in the canopy like shrapnel. We posted guards in 2-hour shifts, the click of safeties echoing soft. I took first watch, perched on a log with the Grand across my knees, peering into the black where the jungle merged with nothing. Thoughts wandered as they do. To Elsie, wondering if the last letter had reached her, mailed from Hollandia, full of lies about how fine I was. To the platoon, whittled down like a pencil stub. And to Begay, snoring lightly in his shallow scrape, helmet over his eyes like a kid hiding from monsters. Part of me pitied him. The rest wanted him gone before he dragged us down. Replacements were a mixed bag. Some bloomed under fire, others wilted like yesterday's banana leaf. This one smelled like wilt. Dawn broke sticky, the sun clawing through the mist like it resented the job. Reveille was a boot to the ribs, mine courtesy of Tex. Up and at 'em, preacher. Skipper wants a patrol out by 0800. I groaned, rolling out of the sack, joints popping like 30 cal rounds. Breakfast was cold sea rations. Cheese spread on hardtack, washed down with coffee from a canteen cup, bitter as regret. Begay sat cross-legged, picking at his, asking Doc about the white powder in the kit. Sulfa, kid, for when the lead finds you. Simple as that. The patrol was recon, scout the trail to the next ridge, mark Jap positions for the mortars. Iron Mike briefed us in the CP tent, a lean-to of ponchos staked to palms, map spread on an ammo crate, marked with grease pencil, red for enemy, blue for ours. Japs are holed up in revetments along the stream bed. Begay, you're with Malone's stick. Keep your eyes peeled. The kid's face paled under the dirt, but he nodded. We humped out single file, 8 men strong, moving slow through the bamboo thickets. The air hummed with insects, a drone that masked the rustle of our passage. My senses were tuned sharp. Ear for the snap of a twig, eye for the unnatural sway of a frond. That's survival in the green hell. Trust your gut over your orders. Begay was mid-pack, trying, but trying wasn't enough. We hit a clearing, knee-high grass waving like a signal flag, and he froze, staring at a flock of birds exploding from the trees. Dumb birds, but in his head, probably a regiment. "Move, Private!" I snapped, yanking his collar. He stumbled forward, rifle swinging wide, the sling catching on a vine. Thwack! It slapped against his helmet, loud in the stillness. Heads turned. Tex cursed under his breath. Oh, kid's a walking alarm clock. We pressed on, the trail dipping into a ravine where the walls closed in like a vice. That's when the first shells whispered in, already from the Japs, probably 75 spotted from some hilltop OP. The whistle started low, building to a shriek that raised the hackles on your neck. "Down!" I bellowed, diving for the bank. The platoon hit the dirt in unison, bodies flattening like they'd rehearsed it, which we had 100 times. The world erupted, crump, 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 earth fountaining in geysers of mud and rock. Shrapnel zinged overhead, clipping leaves like angry hornets. I pressed my face to the slime, tasting grit, counting the blasts. 1, 2, 3. Walk the barrage, they called it. The Japs were good at it, adjusting fire like they had all day. When the echo faded, I raised my head. "Sound off!" Voices rolled back. Tex, Doc, the others. All accounted, except Begay. The kid was 10 yards back, still on his feet, rooted like a palm in a typhoon. Eyes glazed, rifle limp in his hands, staring at the sky like God himself had called roll. Shell fragments littered the ground around him, one scoring a furrow in his pack. A dud, maybe, or blind luck. But luck runs out. Begay, down, you idiot! I lunged, tackling him into the undergrowth. We hit hard, my shoulder taking the brunt, ribs barking in protest. He gasped, wind knocked out, and for a second, we lay tangled, his helmet digging into my chin. The next salvo howled in, closer, too close. I rolled us both into a root tangle, poncho half covering like a prayer. Boom! The blast wave slapped us, dirt raining down like confetti at a hanging. When it passed, I shoved him off, face inches from his. What the hell was that? You trying to paint a target on your back? He blinked, dazed, mud streaking his cheeks. I froze, Sarge. Couldn't move. Like my legs weren't mine. Tex crawled up, spitting red clay. Christ, preacher. Kid's deader than a doornail if you hadn't played hero. Doc checked him over. No holes, just shaken. But I saw it in his eyes, the 1,000-yard stare, hitting him before his first shot fired. Happens to the best. Breaks the weak. We pulled back to the ridge, mission scrubbed, nerves jangling like loose change. Iron Mike chewed me out mild. Replacements need breaking in, Malone, not burying. But his eyes said he understood. Back at the lines, the platoon settled into the routine. Clean weapons, check ammo. Swap scuttlebutt. Begay sat apart, oiling his Garand with trembling hands, the cloth whispering over the action. I watched from my foxhole, sipping water that tasted of canvas. Part of me wanted to go easy. Navajo or not, he was just a kid, shipped out before he could grow a proper mustache. But the sergeant in me knew better. Weak links snapped under strain, and strain was all we had. Lunch was Spam slices on pilot bread, the salt burning cracks in my lips. Begay picked at his, then pulled a letter from his breast pocket. Airmail. Creased from the journey. He read it slow, lips moving silent, a ghost of a smile tugging at his mouth. Home, I figured. Ma, maybe a sweetheart. The sight twisted something in me. We'd all done it once. Clung to those scraps like lifelines. But out here, they were anchors. Put that away, Private, I growled, louder than intended. Heads turned, Tex raised a brow. He folded it quick, cheeks burning. Just from my sister, Sarge. Says the sheep are doing fine. Sheep. On a reservation, probably herding them through red rock canyons. Worlds away from this emerald tomb. Sheep don't shoot back, Begay. Letters do, distract you when you need focus. Burn it if you have to. Keeps the weight down. Harsh, maybe, but necessary. He nodded, tucking it away. But the hurt lingered in his eyes. Good. Hurt kept you sharp. Afternoon brought rain. A solid sheet that turned the ground to soup. We huddled under ponchos, playing acey-deucey on a flattened sea ration box. Steaks were cigarettes, the last luxury before they ran dry. Begay watched from his hole, not invited. Smart kid, sensing the wall. Tex dealt him in anyway, the Texan way, gruff kindness. Come on, Injun. Show us your poker face. The kid hesitated, then crawled over, cards fanning in his lap. He lost the first hand bad, folding on a pair of deuces, laughed it off, but his eyes darted to me, seeking approval. I ignored him, drawing on my smoke, the cherry glowing like a tiny sunrise. As the downpour eased to a drizzle, word came. Contact to the east. A platoon from Baker Company tangling with a Jap outpost. Mortars thumped in the distance. The outgoing whoosh a small comfort. We geared up loose. Extra bandoliers slung, grenades clipped. Iron Mike wanted us as QRF, quick reaction force. Stay frosty, Malone. Japs might probe our lines. We moved out at trot. The trail a river now. Boots splashing through calf-deep flow. Begay kept pace. But his pack shifted, straps loosening in the wet. Clink, clink. The entrenching tool banged against his mess kit, a tinny alarm in the gloom. Secure that gear, I barked, halting the column. He fumbled, fingers slick. The tool finally lashed down with bootlace. But the delay cost us. Scouts reported movement ahead, shadows flitting through the bamboo. We fanned out, low and slow, Garands trained. The air thickened that electric prickle before contact. Birds went quiet, even the rain seemed to hush. It hit fast. A burst from a Nambu, the light machine gun chattering like angry squirrels. Bullets snapped overhead, stitching the ferns. Contact front. Down, and return fire. The platoon dropped, triggers squeezing in ragged volley. My Garand barked, crack ping, the bolt cycling smooth, brass ejecting hot into the mud. I walked the shots, one for the muzzle flash, two more to suppress. Tex flanked left, his Thompson subgun hosing lead in controlled bursts. Doc dragged a grazed man, Riley, cursing in Italian, to cover. Begay? He was behind a log, firing wild. The Grand's report echoed, crack, 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 but no rhythm, no aim. He was hosing the tree line, clip after clip slamming home too fast. 8 rounds per, gone in seconds. The empty pinging out before he ducked for cover. Cease fire, damn it! I yelled over the din, crawling to him. Smoke curled from his barrel, the wood hot to the touch. You're wasting ammo, kid. Aim. Squeeze, don't jerk. That in block clips gold out here. He nodded, face ashen, reloading with hands that shook like leaves in the wind. The Japs melted back, probe, not push. But the damage was done. We'd burned through 100 rounds for nothing, and Battalion would notice the resupply tab. As we policed brass and checked for dinks, I pulled him aside, voice low. That stunt gets your buddies killed when the box runs dry. You fire like you're at the range, not in a scrap. Next time, think before you pull. Sorry, Sarge, just, they were everywhere. Everywhere in his head, maybe. The jungle played tricks, turned shadows to demons. But apologies didn't reload magazines. Back at the lines by dusk, the platoon unwound slow. Wounds bandaged, stories swapped, the usual embellishments. I nailed that bastard clean through the gourd, Tex boasted, miming the shot. Laughter rippled, brittle but real. Begay sat quiet, cleaning his rifle again. The boar snake snaking through like a guilty worm. I watched, weighing him. Burden. That's what he was, extra weight on aching backs. The veterans gave him space, nods at best. No hazing, not yet. We weren't animals. But the looks said it. Prove yourself or fade. Night fell heavy, the moon a sliver behind clouds. I took watch again, the Garand heavy in my lap. Thoughts churned. The kid's questions, his freeze under fire, the wasted lead. Part of me hoped he'd shape up. The platoon needed bodies. The rest? Figured the jungle would claim him quick, spare us the trouble. War's a cruel teacher, and I was just the messenger. Little did I know, that burden was about to shift in ways I couldn't imagine. But that's a story for another fire. The morning after that little scrap with the Nambu nest, the jungle woke us up with a vengeance. It was still October 1944, and the rains had backed off just enough to let the steam rise off the ground like smoke from a fresh kill. Leyte was turning into a slog, the kind that ground men down slower than a bayonet twist, but just as sure. MacArthur's big push was stalling in the valleys, Japs popping up like mushrooms after a shower, their bunkers camouflaged so good you'd step on one before you saw it. We'd taken the ridge, but holding it meant eyes everywhere, and ears too. Iron Mike, Captain Thompson, called us in at first light, his voice gravel over the field phone static. Malone, get your stick to the CP. Briefing in 10. I roused the platoon with a boot to the nearest heel. Texas, as usual. He cursed in that slow drawl, rolling out of his shelter half with his Thompson cradled like a baby. Preacher, if this is about another hump through the slop, I'm trading you for a Jap. Doc was already up, sorting his medkit by the dim glow of a chemlight. Morphine syrettes lined up like soldiers on parade. The rest stirred slow, faces puffy from the wet, beards matted with dew. Begay was last, fumbling his laces in the half-dark, his foxhole still shallow as a grave for a sparrow. He'd improved a hair overnight, dug it deeper after my glare, but it was the little things that stuck, like how he stacked his clips wrong, on block facing out instead of nested. Rookie mistakes, the kind that echoed. We humped down the trail to the CP, a dugout under a massive banyan whose roots knotted the earth like veins. The air was thick, laced with the rot of fallen fronds and the faint char of last night's cook fire. Dead leaves boiled to mush for coffee. My boots squelched in the mud, each step a reminder of the weight. Pack at 60 pounds. Garand slung easy, but the helmet liner chafing my scalp raw. Flies dogged us. Black specks orbiting eyes and mouths, drawn to the salt. Tex swatted one mid-stride, smearing it across his cheek. That these bastards got more fight than the Emperor's boys. The CP was a hive. Maps pinned to a trunk with bayonets, field phones jangling like loose teeth. Iron Mike stood over the chart table. An upturned crate. his scar twitching under the stubble. Lieutenant Hayes was there too, the new platoon leader from Yale, all shine and strategy, but soft around the edges. Green as grass, Tex muttered once, but at least he reads Sun Tzu. Mike looked up as we filed in, his eyes scanning us like inventory. All right, listen up. Battalion's got a hot one. Japs reinforcing the Ormoc Trail, dug in at the crossroads 2 clicks east. Intel says pillboxes, maybe mortars. We hit 'em at noon, flank from the south, pin with the Shermans if they roll up. He jabbed a stubby finger at the map, grease pencil lines snaking through contour squiggles. The crossroads was a choke point, dirt road forking toward the valley, flanked by rises thick with second growth. Problem is the high ground here, this knob. Blind spot for our approach. I need eyes on it before we commit. Spot any movement, call it in. Hayes nodded, tracing the ridge with his pencil. Sergeant Malone, your squad takes point on the main push. Jenkins scouts the trail, Rivera on aid. My gut tightened. The knob was a bastard. Steep, vine-choked, with a clear line of fire down the slope. One good OP up there, and we'd be walking into a meat grinder. I glanced at the squad. Tex, Doc, Riley with his bar, and the rest. Solid but thin. 22 down to 19 now, after that graze yesterday. And then there was Begay, hanging at the back, helmet tilted low, trying to blend into the bark. His eyes met mine for a beat. Nervous, but steady. Steady enough? Doubt it. The kids freeze under the arty, still burn. One glitch like that in a push, and we'd bleed for it. Mike rolled the map, his voice dropping. Malone, you're on the hook for that overlook. Get me a sit rep by 1100. Hayes chimed in, all crisp. Affirmative. String wire if you have to. Keep it tight. I nodded, but my mind was churning. String wire in this tangle? We'd need a full fire team to clear a path, and that meant pulling vets off the line. Tex caught my eye, shrugging like he read the play. No way was I risking Jenkins or Riley on a solo creep. Not with the Japs' tricks. Booby traps strung like Christmas lights. Snipers who waited for the twitch. Outside, the squad formed up loose, checking gear under the banyans' shade. Garands oiled, bar mags topped, grenades thumbed for pins. Begay knelt by his pack, stuffing extra clips. His hands surer than yesterday, but still fumbling the slings. The unblocked clips clicked home wrong again, protruding like bad teeth. I stepped over, voice low. Private, you planning on feeding that hog or waving it like a flag? He flushed, yanking them straight. Sorry, Sarge. Won't happen again? Yeah, right. Apologies were cheap as K-rations. Tex sidled up, spitting tobacco juice into a fern. What's the word, preacher? We drawing the short straw on that hill? I rubbed my jaw, stubble rasping like sandpaper. Something like. Mike wants eyes, but I'm not burning good men on him, maybe. Doc overheard, packing his kit. Kid could do it, maybe. Navajo. Ain't they the tracking bunch? Code talkers and all? I shot him a look. Code talkers fight smart, Rivera. Begay fights scared. Last thing we need is him freezing with a phone in his fist. But the idea wormed in. Battalion was screaming for intel, and Hayes was itching to prove his pins. If I sent a vet, we'd be light for the push. Riley's bar was our punch, Tex's eyes our edge. Begay? He was expendable math. 1 green against the squad's odds. Harsh truth, but war's built on them. I watched him stand, shouldering his pack without the sag. Learning slow. The jungle whispered around us. Distant monkey chatter, the drip of residual rain. Part of me, the old sergeant, the one who'd buried kids greener, felt the twist. But the platoon came first, always. All right, listen up. I pitched my voice for the squad, low but caring. They gathered, boots scuffing the leaf litter. Here's the deal. Main efforts the trail at noon. We flank south, link with the tanks. But first, that knob needs scouting. Begay, you're on it. The words hung heavy as humidity. Heads turned. Tex's brow arched. Doc's mouth tightened. The kid's face drained, eyes widening like I'd handed him a live nade. Me, Sarge? Alone? Alone's the word, Private. Take a field phone, spool of wire, 200 yards out of reach. Crawl up the east slope, quiet as a ghost. Spot Japs, movement, bunkers. Call it in on Channel 3. No fireworks unless they spot you first. You hang back, you watch, you report. Clear? He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing like a float in a stream. Yes, sir. But the wire. Won't it snag? Smart question, damn him. I pulled a coil from the CP cache, dull green, insulated against the wet, and thrust it at him. That's why you lay it smart. Bury it shallow, loop the roots, or you drag it behind like a tail. Your call? Riley chuckled, low and mean. Kid's got brass for question. Just don't trip the whole damn thing on a vine. Tex shot him a glare, but the damage was there, the squad's doubt mirroring mine. Begay clipped the phone to his belt, the hand crank handle glinting dully. It was old school, battery-free, the kind that worked when radios ghosted out. When do I go, Sarge? Now, I thought, before I changed my mind. Oh, 900. Rest of us kit up for the push. Move out. He nodded, turning toward the trailhead, the wire spool under one arm like a bowling ball. I watched him go, boots tentative on the slick path, Garand slung tight. The jungle swallowed him quick, green on green, gone in 10 paces. Part of me expected the crack of a sniper's Arasaka before he hit the first bend. Good riddance, maybe. Save the paperwork. But another part, the one that remembered my own first solo, shivering in a Sicilian olive grove, wished him blind luck. War's no place for maybes, but it breeds them anyway. The squad broke, prepping for the hump. I checked my own gear. Garand sighted in at 200, bolt cycling slick with oil that smelled like home, linseed, and regret. 8 clips in the pouches, 2 in the pack. Grenades 4, frags pineappled for the throw. Pack light. No blanket, just the poncho for rain or cover. The weight settled familiar. A old friend pressing your shoulders. Tex was oiling his Thompson, the drum mag spinning like a roulette wheel. You sure about the engine, preacher? Kid's got moxie, but that hill's a widowmaker. I shrugged, cinching my helmet strap. Moxie's what we need, or a miracle. Either way, it's on him. Doc paused, cigarette in hand. He's Navajo, Frank. They got stories, tracking ghosts in the desert, hearing the wind tell lies. Maybe he hears the jungle different, I grunted. Stories were for stateside bars, not here. But Doc had a point. The kid moved quieter now, eyes scanning low like he'd been born to it. Yesterday's freeze? Maybe just jitters. Or maybe he'd crack wider under the green roof. 0900 hit like a whistle, the sun clawing higher, turning the air to broth. We waited on the wire, me mostly, perched on a stump with the field phone receiver cupped to my ear. Static hissed, then a scratch. Crank turn. The dynamo whining faint. Viper 3, this is, Outpost 1. Wire laid. Moving up slope. Begay's voice pitched low, tinny through the line. No shake, not much. Copy. Outpost. Keep it brief. Positions only. Out. Click. The squad milled, cleaning weapons or catnapping against trees. Riley whittled a stick with his bayonet, carving crude initials. Think the kid'll spot a tea party up there? Laughter rippled, thin. 10 minutes dragged to 20, the jungle's chorus mocking us. Birds screeching, leaves rustling like whispers. Sweat traced my spine, itching under the shirt. Thoughts wandered to Elsie, her last letter folded in my paybook. Words blurring. Come home whole, Frankie. Whole. Yeah. Iron Mike radioed from the CP. Malone, status? Wires hot, skipper. Begay's creeping. Main push in 40. Affirmative. I pictured the captain, scar-tight, plotting the overlay. Hayes hovered, no doubt, second-guessing the angles. The phone crackled again, mid-morning haze thickening. Viper 3, outpost. Got eyes on the knob. Clear so far. Vines heavy. No movement. Wait. Shadows in the cut. 2, maybe 3 figures, low crawl. My pulse kicked. Copy shadows. Japs or spook. Pause, the line humming like a hive. Japs. Uniforms. Web gear. Digging looks like. 1 with a pick. Gold. Bunkers going in fresh. Numbers. Weapons. 3 visible. Rifle slung, 1 Nambu broken down. No heavy stuff. Good kids spotting the details. Mark it. Grid Echo 5, hold position, out. I relayed to Mike. Fresh intel, pinpoint. Hayes would cream his pants. The squad perked, sensing the buzz. Tex grinned, slapping a fresh mag home. In June's earning his feathers. But I wasn't sold. Shadows could be wind. Digging could be monkeys. Needed more. The line stayed quiet, the crank silent. Minutes piled, the sun baking our backs. Flies returned, feasting on the sweat. I paced the perimeter, Garand at sling, thumb tracing the safety. What if he snagged the wire? Tripped a vine trap? Japs love those. Pressure plates linked to nades, silent till the boom. Begay was light on his feet, yeah, but green meant clumsy. By 10:30, doubt gnawed. The push loomed, trucks revving distant, Shermans clanking up the supply road. Iron Mike's voice crackled on the platoon net. Malone, we're spooling. Get me that hill or we go blind. Working it, skipper? I cranked the phone myself, the handle biting my palm. Outpost, Viper 3, sit rep. Static. Then faint, holding. More movement. 4 now. Setting charges, wait. Patrol inbound, South Trail. My neck hairs stood. Patrol meant eyes on our approach. Numbers, direction, 6, file. Rifles, 1 scout. Heading your way, slow. Shit. Probe, testing the line. I barked orders. Squad, low and cover. Contact possible. They dropped, weapons up, scanning the brush. Tex took the flank, bar chugging imaginary fire. Doc knelt by a log. Kit open. The air went taut, that pre-fight hum where your mouth dries and your heart thuds like a diesel. Minutes stretched, ears straining for the rustle. Nothing. False alarm? Or Begay spooking at squirrels? 1100 sharp, the phone spat. Life. Viper outpost, patrol bypassed. Missed you by 50 yards. Knobs hot, 6 total, entrenching. Grid Echo 5-2. Recommend suppress before push. Detailed. Too detailed for a flinch. Copy all. Exfil now. Wire back, link at the fork. Affirm. Oscar Mike. Moving out. I exhaled, the knot loosening a hair. Kid delivered, clean, no drama. Maybe Doc was right. Maybe the desert blood ran true in the green. But as the squad humped for the line, gear jangling soft, the old cynicism crept back. Luck, not skill. One good report didn't erase the freeze, the fumbles. And that hill? Still a death trap. We'd hit it regardless, Begay's eyes or not. Iron Mike's plan rolled. Flank south, Shermans, punching the road. My squad slotted in the van, Tex on point, me mid with the phone coiled at my feet. The trail dipped into ferns, fronds slapping faces like wet towels. Humidity wrapped us, shirts clinging translucent. Thoughts on the kid. He'd link soon or not? If not, we'd mourn later. War's triage. Noon baked the world gold, the sun a hammer on helmets. We crested a rise, the crossroads winking below. Dirt crosshatch, flanked by palms. Distant thump, mortars zeroing. Japs knew we were coming. Easy, I hissed. The squad froze, breaths sinking. Then the world cracked. Nambu chatter, stitching the tree line. Contact, down! Bullets snapped, leaves shredding like paper. My grand came up instinctive. Crack ping, bolt, slamming home. Brass arcing hot. Tex hose left. Thompson barking staccato. Riley's bar roared. 30 cal, chewing bark. Chaos bloomed. Japs in the cut, shadows turning flesh. Grenades arced, potato mashers, bursting in fountains of earth. I dropped a clip, slamming fresh. 8 rounds, walked into the flash. 1 down, helmet spinning. Doc yelled over the din, "Man hit!" Riley thigh opened, blood sheeting. The push stalled, pinned in the defilade. Sherman's growled distant, but the road was mined. Booms echoing, treads screaming. That's when the phone buzzed at my belt. Begay from the wire's end. Viper, knobs clear, patrol pulled back. Flank open. What? I yanked the receiver, ducking a ricochet. Say again. I flanked him. Cut the wire trail, got eyes on your pose. They're thin, 3 left. Hit 'em now. Flanked? Alone? The line hummed, his breath ragged. Hold, outpost. Linking. But doubt flickered. Kid's voice edged, not panicked. Doing it. I waved Tex. Cover fire! Suppressive! The squad poured lead, muzzles flashing. I bolted right. Low crawl through thorns that raked like claws. The knob loomed, Begay's wire a faint snake in the green. Heart pounding, Garand dragging. What the hell was I doing? Chasing ghosts. But Mike's voice in my head, eyes on the hill. Cresting the slope, lungs burning, I spotted him, crouched in a root ball, phone cradled, Grand trained downslope, dirt caked but eyes sharp, scanning like a hawk. Sarge? Whisper. What the? Begay, you were supposed to exfil. He grinned, ghost pale. Wire held. Saw the jam, cut across. Got one already. Silent. One? I peered. Below, a Jap sprawled, throat open, quiet, knife work. Navajo trick? Christ, kid, you're... Gunfire swelled below, our boys advancing. The remaining three stirred, rifles up. Cover me, I hissed. He nodded steady. I flanked left, grenade palmed, pull, lob. Arc perfect. Boom! Shrapnel whispered, two down in the smoke. The last bolted. Begay's shot cracked, clean through the leg. No kill, just stop. Mercy? Or smarts. We dragged him, zip-tied to the rear later. But in the moment, the hill fell silent, our flank open. Linking back, the push surged, Sherman's rumbling, Japs folding. Casualties light, Riley patched, no KIA. Iron Mike clapped my shoulder at the CP. Good eyes, Malone. But his glance said he knew. Begay trudged in last, wire coiled, face streaked but unbroken. The squad stared, Tex's nod slow, Doc's smile real. Not bad engine. Kid shrugged, dropping his pack. Just listening, Tex. Jungle talks, if you let it. I watched, silent. Risk paid off, but the math shifted. Burden? Maybe not. But trust? That was a longer hump. War's risks don't end with one hill. They stack like cordwood for the fire. And ours was just warming. The crossroads fell easier than I figured it would, like the Japs had left the door ajar just to lure us in. By early afternoon on that sticky October day in 1944, the sun was a dull brass hammer beating down through breaks in the canopy, turning the sweat on our necks to rivers that soaked everything. Collars, boots, the very stocks of our Garands. We'd pushed through the defilade after Begay's wire report, the kid's voice fading on the line like a bad connection. But his intel had been solid. Those three diggers on the knob were the only eyes, and we'd blinded them quick. My squad linked up with the platoon at the fork, the air still humming with the echo of our fire. Crack ping of M1s, the deeper cough of Texas Thompson and Riley's bar, chewing through its belt like it was personal. Casualties? Light. A couple scratches from thorns and ricochets. Nothing Doc couldn't stitch with a siret and a curse in Spanish. Iron Mike came up on the net, his voice cutting through the static like a knife. Viper 3, solid copy. Hold the cross and consolidate. Second platoon swinging north. Link at the bridge by 1700. Consolidate. Army word for dig in and pray the bugs don't eat you alive. We fanned out along the dirt junction where the trail split like a wishbone toward the Ormoc Valley. Palms leaned in crooked, their fronds rattling soft in the breeze off the river. And the ground was a mat of trampled ferns and spent brass. Ours mixed with a few curved 7.7 millimeter casings from the Japs' Arisakas. The Shermans rumbled up last, their treads churning the muck into a slurry that sucked at our ankles. Big beasts, those M4s, with a 75 millimeter peeking from the turret like a suspicious eye. Sergeant Hale, the tank commander from C Company, leaned out the hatch, his face smeared with grease and that perpetual squint from scanning hedgerows. Back in Normandy, stories he'd spin over chow. Malone, you grunts clear the road? Got mines whiffing my skirts. I thumbed back at the cleared stretch, where we'd prodded with bayonets for the telltale wires. Clean as your conscience, Hale. Just watch the bends. Japs love knee mortars from the high grass. He grunted, a laugh buried in it, and the tank settled into logger, hulls broadside to cover the angles. My squad took the East Fork, digging foxholes in the soft loam where the roots gave way like overripe fruit. The entrenching tools rang dull, clink, scrape, against hidden stones. And soon we had a perimeter, overlapping fields of fire, with Riley's bar slotted to sweep the trail. Tex dragged in some deadwood for overhead, lashing it with vines to break the outline from any OP. Preacher, this spot's got that too quiet feel, like the calm before the monsoon. I nodded, sighting my grand down the barrel. Iron sights crisp at 100 yards, the front post steady on a stump that could hide a knee mortar crew. Quiet's what we bought with that hill. Enjoy it while it lasts. Doc was already sorting his kit in the shade of a Sherman track, syrettes and bandages arrayed like a surgeon's tray. The rest of the boys, Hankowski the Pole from Chicago, with his perpetual scowl. Little Sammy Lee, the kid from San Francisco who'd lied about his age, spread out, cleaning weapons with that ritual rhythm, bore brush in, out, oilcloth wiping the action till it gleamed. 1700 came with a drizzle, the kind that started as mist and built to a patter on helmets, turning the dirt to grease underfoot. Second platoon linked up from the north. Their lieutenant, some fresh-faced kid named Carver, briefing Iron Mike under the tank's overhang. Maps rustled, voices low over the rain's whisper. Japs falling back to the riverline skipper. Scouts say bunkers along the bank, maybe a company strong. Mike's scar pulled tight as he traced the overlay. Push at dawn. Flank the bend, Sherman's suppress. Malone, your stick takes point. Keep it tight. Hayes, our own LT, hovered like a shadow, nodding along. Yale boy had his moments, but this was Mike's show. The captain had that North African glint, the one that said he'd seen Montgomery's tea parties turn to tank wrecks and still come out swinging. We bunked down early, the rain drumming a steady tattoo on ponchos strung as lean-tos. Chow was cold D-rations, chocolate bars that melted in your pocket, and hard crackers that chipped teeth. I chewed mine slow, the sweetness cloying against the tang of quinine tabs. Malaria prophylaxis tasting like bitter regret. Thoughts wandered in the dark, the way they do when the body's still but the mind revs. To the hill, Begay's last crackle on the wire. Flank open! Kid had stepped up, quiet-like, no fanfare. Wire probably snagged now. Lost in the green, but he'd bought us the cross. Or so I figured. No time to dwell. Patrols reported nothing, but nothing in the jungle meant everything waiting. Tex took first watch, his silhouette hunched against a palm, Thompson across his knees. I sacked out in my hole. The grain cradled close, the wood warm from the day's grip. Sleep came fitful, dreams of sand dunes bleeding into vines. Rommel's ghost laughing as MacArthur waded ashore. Dawn broke grudging, the rain easing to a steam that rose off the ground like battlefield fog. Reveille was Mike's whistle, sharp over the chorus of waking birds. Squawks and trills that masked the creak of gear. We humped out at 0600, the platoon strung in column, my squad point, seconds on drag, Sherman's trailing with engines idling low to save fuel. The trail hugged the river, a brown snake winding through bamboo thickets, the water chuckling over rocks like it was in on the joke. Air heavy, laced with decay, rotting leaves, distant cordite from night probes. My boots sank ankle-deep in the ooze. Each pull a suck and release that set the pace. Garand at low ready, bayonet fixed. The steel gleamed dull, a comfort against the unknown. Tex was on flank, eyes peeling the underbrush for the twitch. A frond out of place, mud churned fresh. Preacher, smells like ambush. Too damn peaceful. I spat to clear the quinine film. Peaceful's progress, Jenkins. Keep scanning. The bend came up quick, a hairpin where the river swung wide, banks lined with fern-choked rises. Mike's plan was textbook. Us hugging the inner curve, second covering the outer, tanks zeroing the far bank with coaxials. Hayes relayed on the walkie. Eyes sharp, bunkers probable. We crept it slow, the column compressing like an accordion. First line of trenches showed at 50 yards, shallow scrapes, logs revetted with sandbags, abandoned, hasty. The contact minimal, I whispered into the net. Pushing. The squad flowed in, Grands probing corners, grenades palmed for the toss. Empty, too empty. A rusted Arasaka leaned against a berm, bayonet bent like it had argued with a root. Hankowski kicked it aside, muttering Polish under his breath. Like ghosts, Sarge. They just up and left. We took the line easy, foxing in behind the berms, the earth cool and damp under elbows. From here, the far bank winked open, a clearing maybe platoon-sized, with what looked like spider holes dotting the grass. Circular pits camouflaged loose, no movement. Mike came forward, binoculars to his eyes. Looks good, Malone. Signal the tanks, suppress and advance. I flashed the panel, white square, then black for the armor. Engines growled, turrets traversing with a metallic groan. The lead Sherman barked first. Whoosh crack, the 75 sending a smoke round arcing high, blooming yellow over the holes. Japs popped like moles, figures scrambling, rifles glinting. Our volley followed. Crack, ping, ping. The Garands singing in chorus. Brass raining hot. Texas Thompson chattered, stitching a runner mid-stride. Down they went 3, 4, bodies crumpling in the grass, helmets rolling like spilled coins. Advancing. Mike's call cut the din. We surged across the river ford. Water cold to the knees, rifles high. Boots splashed, the current tugging like insistent fingers. Second platoon paralleled. Hayes yelling encouragements that sounded straight from a manual. The tanks hosed the bank, Coke's 30 cals rattling like chainsaws. It felt good, too good. The kind of a momentum that makes you forget the bill comes later. We hit the far side scrambling up the slippy bank into the holes. Mine was shallow, knee-deep, smelling of wet earth and piss. Abandoned knee mortar tube lay tipped, its base plate dented. "Clear," I called, sweeping the Agrand. The squad echoed, fanning through the clearing. Losses? None. Wounds? Sammy Lee took a graze on the arm. Flesh nick, bleeding pink. Doc slapped a compress, the kid grinning through the sting. "Like a bee, Doc. Stings worse than it looks." Iron Mike grouped us at the clearing's edge, a hummock overlooking the next stretch. More trail, winding into thicker growth. Rain held off, the sun peeking to dry our socks. Solid work, 3. That's the river line cracked. Battalion wants the trailhead by noon. High ground there. OP for the valley. He unfolded the map, grease pencil fresh. Our blue arrow pushing east. Japs in red curls, falling back. Hayes nodded, all brass. "I recommend we consolidate here, sir. Send patrols to probe." Mike weighed it, scar twitching. "Negative. Momentum's ours. Push now before they regroup. Malone, your point again. Flank the thicket left. Watch for caves." Caves. The word hung like smoke. Japs loved them. Honeycombed hillsides, machine guns nested deep. But the high was singing in our veins, that rare taste of easy yardage. We moved out, the platoon echeloned, my squad leading the hook, second covering the base. Sherman's held the ford, Hale's voice crackling. "Got your backs, grunts. Call if the bugs bite." The thicket was a wall, bamboo groves laced with vines, the path a tunnel of green shafts bending overhead. Light dappled the floor in spots, turning it checkered. We threaded single file, Tex on point now, his knife pruning the odd stem that blocked. My place third, Garand shouldered, thumb light on the safety. The air cooled in the shade, a relief from the steam bath, but it carried that undercurrent. Rot, yes, but something sharper, like oiled steel left to sweat. 50 yards in, the tunnel widened to a defile. Walls of earth rising 10 feet, undercut with roots like exposed veins. Perfect kill zone. Gut said slow, but the push said go. "Tighten up," I hissed back. The column compressed, boots soft on the leaf pack. Then it happened, quiet as a breath held too long. From the left wall, a flicker, shadow shifting unnatural. "Contact left!" Tex's yell barely beat the chatter. The world exploded. Not the Nambu this time, worse. Type 92 heavy machine gun, the Japs' water-cooled beast, mounted in a cave mouth we'd missed, concealed behind a false berm of ferns. It roared to life, a sewing machine on steroids. Brap, brap, brap. The 7.7mm rounds stitching the air at 1,200 a minute. Bullets snapped and whined, chewing the bamboo into splinters that lashed like whips. The defile turned slaughter pen instant, men dropping, screams cut short. I hit the dirt behind a root ball, the Garand barking blind, crack ping, into the flash. Brass scorched my cheek, ejected hot. "Suppress that gun!" "Flank right!" But the chatter pinned us, rounds ricocheting off the walls in deadly ricochets, pinging off helmets like hail on tin. Tex was down, 10 yards front, clutching his side, blood sheeting dark under his shirt. "Flanked him, preacher. Bastards were waiting." His voice gurgled. Thompson silent. Doc crawled to him, low as a snake, kit dragging. "Hold, Jenkins! Siret coming." But the guns swung, hosing their position. Doc jerked, a round clipping his shoulder, spinning him into the mud. Sammy Lee fired from cover, his Grand cycling furious. but a burst caught him square. Chest blooming red, eyes wide in shock before glazing. Kid never screamed, just slumped, rifle clattering. Hankowski roared Polish fury, lobbing a frag overhand. Boom in the cave mouth, smoke belching. The Type 92 stuttered, then resumed, angrier. Mike's voice on the net. 3 actual! Viper 6! Sitrep. Taking fire, heavy MG left flank. Static swallowed half, but his tone was steel. Pull back to the clearing, regroup. Pull back? Through that? The defile was a funnel. Japs now popping from slits we'd thought empty. Riflemen with Type 99s, popping shots deliberate. Bullets cracked past my ear, close enough to feel the breeze. I rolled left into a shallow scrape, siding the cave, muzzle flash winking. The gunner a shadow behind the shield. Grenade, pull, arc, lob. It sailed short, bursting midway, shrapnel whispering harmless. You reload! Clip slammed home, 8 rounds fresh. The platoon was unraveling. Second's lead man, some Jersey kid, took one through the thigh, screaming as he dragged himself back. Hayes yelled orders, voice cracking. Covering fire, advance by bounds. But bounds meant exposure, and exposure meant the gun. A knee mortar whooshed in, crump behind us, earth fountaining, clipping 2 in the rear. Shrapnel sang. One piece scoring my pack, another taking Lieutenant Carver in the leg. Bone white under the rent pants. Mike went forward himself, M1 bucking, dropping a Jap at the slit. Push, damn it. Close that gun. But the Type 92 traversed, catching him mid-stride. Burst to the chest, staggering him back. Captain Thompson, Iron Mike, crumpled slow, like a felled tree, his rifle digging furrows in the dirt. The net went dead. Viper! 6! Down! Hayes took command, voice thin. Fall back. All elements. Fall back. Fall back. The word tasted like defeat, bitter as the mud in my mouth. We crawled, dragged, carried, whatever it took. I hauled Tex, his arm over my shoulder, legs trailing limp. Leave me, preacher, get the boys. Shut it, Jenkins, you're too ugly to bury. But his weight dragged, each pull sapping. Doc, patched hasty, covered our drag with his .45, the pistol popping steady. Hankowski laid suppress, bar, roaring. But ammo burned fast, the belt whipping empty. Casualties mounted. 6 down in the first minute, 8 by the pull. Sammy gone, Carver screaming for morph, a radio man, poor Ruiz, gutshot and fading quiet. The river ford loomed, a promise of open ground, but the Japs pressed. More rifles now, a dozen shadows in the slits, firing methodical. Bullets plunked the water ahead. Geysers marching toward us. We hit the ford scrambling. The current a cold shock that numbed the fear a hair. Shermans opened up from the bank. Coaxials hammering the defile. High explosive from the main gun booming deep. Hale's voice boomed. Grunts, move your asses. We're painting the cave. The tank's 75 spoke again. Whoosh, boom. The shell burrowing into the wall, collapsing part in a slide of earth and rock. The Type 92 silenced. Maybe crew buried, maybe just stunned. But the damage clung. The air reeked of burnt powder and worse. That coppery tang you pretend isn't blood. We piled on the near bank under the tank's skirts, gasping like landed fish. Hayes took count. 19 left from 34. Mike gone. Iron Mike, with his scar and his pipe dreams of Tokyo. The captain who'd pulled us through New Guinea, who'd shared his last smoke after a bonsai. Dead in a ditch because we'd bought the quiet. The medevac chopper couldn't touch down, not with the thicket swarming now. Japs counter-probed, shadows flitting at the tree line, knee mortars probing our holes. Doc worked triage. Tex stabilized, morph dulling the pain. Carver's legs splinted crude. Ruiz... Doc just shook his head, closing the eyes. Gonna need a surgeon for that one, Sarge. Surgeon? In the islands? We'd ship him if the flyboys braved the flak. Hayes huddled with the remnant LTs. Map out, voice steadying. Hold the ford. Battalion sending support. Artillery zeroed on the defile by dusk. Hold. Easy word for a lifetime. The boys looked to me. Eyes hollow, faces streaked. Tex pale under the compress. Hankowski, reloading with hands that shook not from cold. What now, preacher? someone muttered. Sammy's spot empty, his Garand stacked with the dead. I took the net, Hayes nodding permission. Viper 3 to Eagle Main, sit rep. Heavy contact defile, casualties heavy. Captain down. Holding forward. Request immediate arty. Static, then battalion's exec. Voice clipped. Copy 3. Fire mission inbound. 5 mics. Hold what you got. Hold. The perimeter tightened. Foxholes scratched hasty in the bank. Bars and Grands sweeping arcs. The Shermans formed a wall. Their 50 cals chattering at shadows. But shadows multiplied. Japs filtering through the bamboo. Fanatical quiet. No bonsai yell. Just the pop-pop of 99s. One grazed my helmet, denting the rim. Another took a loader in the track, screaming as hail dragged him down. Ammo dipped. Clips thinning. Grenades down to 2 per man. The rain returned, turning the ford to a slurry that clogged actions. Mudded sights. Dusk crept like a thief. The light bleeding to gray under the clouds. Artie whispered in, first round short, bracketing the defile. Whoomp whoomp. The 105s from the battery on the ridge, air bursting over the thicket. Japs replied, mortars counter battery. Shells shrieking high. One landed close. Crump in the river. Waves slapping us wet. Shrapnel zipping harmless overhead. Incoming, Hayes yelled. But we were dug, helmets down. The barrage built. Walk forward, adjust fire, the ground shuddering like a drunk stagger. Trees toppled, distant. Crashes muffled by the roar. Our coaxials added chorus, tracers arcing red into the gloom. But the trap held teeth. A sapper team, 3 Japs, packs bulging, slipped the flank under the rain's cover, crawling belly flat through the ferns. Hankowski spotted him first. Sarge, left demo. His bar barked, mowing the lead. The others rolled, lobbing satchel charges wild. One stuck the bank short, bursting in a geyser of mud and rock, earth collapsing, bearing a foxhole partial. Poor Ruiz, already gone, took the worst. Body tumbled into the current, bobbing like driftwood. The second charge hit a Sherman track. Boom, tread segment shearing, the tank slewing sideways with a groan. Hale cursed from the turret. God damn it, engines flooding! Mobility kill, the beast was beached. We mopped the sappers, bayonets close, the work grim and silent. Faces young, some barely bearded, eyes wide even in death. Fanatics, Tokyo Rose's boys, promised paradise for the Emperor. I wiped the blade on a frond, the steel dull now, and slotted back into the line. Hayes called adjustment. Fire for effect. Defile and thicket. The barrage peaked. Thunder rolling unbroken. Flashes strobing the rain, like lightning gone mad. Shells walked the ground, cratering the path, turning bamboo to matchsticks. Japs broke, scattered shots fading, shadows melting back. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the patter and the moans. Battalion relief humped in at full dark. Fresh platoon, faces ghosts in the poncho light. They took the watch, med team sorting the wounded. Tex shipped out on a litter, Doc with him, shoulder mangled bad. Keep preaching, preacher, Tex rasped, grip weak. Tell Elsie. Yeah, I nodded, throat tight. Mike's body wrapped careful, tags clipped, headed for the beach. Hayes promoted provisional, lieutenant to acting captain. His hand steady on the map now. We hold Malone, Valley tomorrow. Tomorrow. Like there'd be one without the ghosts. The boys sacked ragged, ponchos sagging under the pour. I took watch with the new blood, Garand heavy, eyes burning from the flash. Thoughts circled. The quiet we'd chased, the trap we'd walked into. Intel wrong, caves missed. Whose fault? Mine for pushing point. Mike's for the momentum call. War's blame game, endless as the rain. The ford bubbled soft, carrying Ruiz downstream to the sea. Casualties. 12 KIA, 7 wounded. Half the platoon gone in a blink. Begay. Wire long silent, hill a memory. Figured the kid snared it all. Vines or a patrol. No time to mourn. Greenhorns died quiet. The jungle whispered on, indifferent, and I wondered if MacArthur's return was worth this tab. But wondering fixed nothing. Hold, the order said. So we held into the wet night, waiting for the dawn's next lie. Word came at midnight, battalion shift, our remnant pulling to rear for refit. Relief side collective, The new squad taking the holes still warm. We humped back trail, litters slung between the wounded murmuring fever dreams. Haze led, map light bobbing. I brought drag, grand slung, the way to anchor now. The crossroad passed ghost quiet, Sherman's towed by the one mobile. Hale waved from the wreck. Owe you a beer, Malone. For the spot. Beer. In Manila, maybe. The CP loomed, lights faint under blackout, and we piled in exhausted. Doc's replacement, a harried corporal, took the wounded. Ours shipped dawn. Hayes debriefed Kurt. Trap sprung clean. Japs knew the bend, waited us out. Knew. Spies? Or just better at the game? Sack hit hard, the cot in the tent a luxury. Canvas over slats, no roots jabbing ribs. But sleep dodged, the rain on the fly sheet a drum of the defiles chatter. Mike's face flickered, Scar pulling in that half grin, saying, keep 'em alive. Failed him. Failed the boys. The platoon, my platoon, whittled to bones. Tomorrow, refit meant new meat, green as Begay. Cycle spun on. I fingered Elsie's photo, creased deeper, her smile accusing. Home whole, she'd wrote. Whole. Shattered now. Dawn grayed the flap and the bugle blew. Revel, relentless. Hold the line, it said, even when the trap snaps shut. The rain had turned the ford into a shallow lake by the time full dark clamped down. October's chill seeping through our fatigues like a bad promise. 1944, and Leyte felt like the edge of the world. MacArthur's grand return reduced to us knee-deep in mud, holding a scrap of riverbank against shadows that wouldn't quit. Battalions already had walked the defile good, those 105s thumping home like God's own hammer, cratering the thicket and silencing the last echoes of the Type 92's chatter. But silence in the jungle wasn't peace. It was the pause before the knife slips in. We'd pulled back to the near bank, the Shermans forming a ragged wall with their hulls. The one mobility-killed beast slewed sideways like a drunk at last call. Hale's crew was jury-rigging the tread with spare links from the packs, cursing in that flat Midwest drawl of his, while the Coke's 30 kept a nervous finger on the trigger, sweeping the tree line. Hayes, acting Captain Hayes now, with Mike's blood still fresh on the map, huddled us in a scrap of overhang under a tank skirt, his Yale polish cracking under the strain. The poncho light cast his face yellow, shadows pooling in the hollows like bruises. Sit, Rep. We're cut off. Radio's got interference, Japs jamming, maybe. Battalions probing, but no link till dawn. Probing. Army euphemism for, you're on your own, suck it up. The boys were ghosts themselves. Hankowski reloading his bar with hands that didn't shake anymore, just moved mechanical. The new kid from 2nd Platoon, Ellis, staring at his grand like it might bite. And the wounded stacked careful. Carver moaning low through the morph, his legs splinted with a rifle stock and vines. Doc's replacement, that harried corporal named Voss, worked the line. Sulfa on the bleeds, Surrettes for the screamers. Ammo? Thin. I'd counted my clips twice. 4 left, 24 rounds if I nursed them. Grenades? 1 frag, a smoke if it came to bug out. The air hung heavy with copper and cordite, undercut by the river's gurgle mocking us. I slotted into a foxhole scraped hasty beside the lead Sherman, the grand stock digging into my shoulder like an old grudge. The hole was shallow, 18 inches of mud that sucked at your elbows, and the rain drummed the overhead fronds, dripping steady down my neck. Thoughts churned practical. Angles first. The defile loomed across the water, a black maw in the night where the Japs would mass for the counter. They'd smelled blood, fanatics, everyone. Tokyo Rose whispering in their ears about imperial glory and 70 virgins or whatever Hirohito peddled. No Banzai yet, but it brewed. Flank the left, I figured. Use the tanks for base of fire. Crawl the ford, under cover. But with Mike down and Hayes green, the call was mine till relief humped in. Malone, Hayes had said, voice low, you're platoon sergeant now. Keep us breathing. Breathing. Yeah. 1 breath at a time. The watch rotated ragged. 2 hours on. The rain, your only company. I took the first, perched on the berm with the M1 across my knees, the bolt slick under my thumb. Night in the islands was alive. Frogs croaking like jammed Thompsons, distant monkey chatter that could mask a patrol. and the river's rush, swollen now, carrying God knows what downstream. Flies buzzed the wounded fat black bastards feasting on the compresses. Voss shoot 'em, whispering Spanish prayers. Old habit from the old dock. My mind wandered tactical. Resupply? None till dawn if the flyboys dodged the zeros. Escape? Ford was suicide. Current strong, banks mined likely. Hold then. Dig deeper. Layer the fields. But holding meant feeding the grinder, and we were chum. Midnight crept, the rain easing to a mist that beaded on my helmet like sweat. That's when the first oddity hit. Not a shot, but an absence. The probes had stopped. No pop of Type 99s testing our wire. No whoosh of knee mortars bracketing the bank. Too quiet even for the barrage lull. Hankowski shifted in the next hole. His bar's bipod sunk in the muck. Sarge, you hear that? Like they packed up for tea. I strained, nothing but drip and gurgle. Japs don't tea, Hank, they're coiling, eyes open. But the gut said different. Something off, like the air before a squall turns. Hayes radioed battalion again, static heavy. The jammer's crew may be among the ghosts. Eagle Main, Viper 3, sitrep hold, but interference thick. Request fire mission on grid. Cut off. He slammed the handset, cursing Yale Latin under his breath. Then it started. Faint at first. A pop, across the river, that could have been a backfiring jeep. But no. Sharper, familiar, crack ping, the unmistakable song of an M1 Garand. Bolts slamming home, brass pinging off rocks. One shot, clean. From the thicket, maybe 200 yards in, our side of the defile, but deep. A yelp cut the night, Japanese, high and surprised, followed by shouts, guttural commands barking like dogs. Baka! Koko ni! Footsteps scrambled, branches snapping frantic. I froze, finger light on the trigger, sighting the black. Contact? Hankowski whispered, bar traversing slow. Negative, listen. Another ping, crack ping, and a thud, body hitting wet earth. More shouts, panic edging the tones, officers yelling, rifles clacking as they chambered rounds blind. The squad stirred, heads popping from holes like gophers. Ellis, the new kid, fumbled his clip. The end block clattering soft. What the hell, Sarge, one of ours? I shushed him, ear cocked. The jungle answered, a grenade spoon ping. Our MK2, the pineapple whirring brief, then boom, muffled in the underbrush. Not full frag spread, but close. Shrapnel whispering, followed by screams, 2, maybe 3 Japs. The kind that twist in your gut, even from afar. Chaos bloomed. Flashlights stabbing the dark, dumb bastards outlining themselves. Nambu light machine guns chattering wild into the vines. Tracers arcing harmless up. They're shooting shadows, Hayes hissed from the CP scrap, binoculars to his eyes. Malone, you see it? I didn't, not yet. But the rhythm built. Methodical pops from the Grand spaced like a sniper's prayer, each ping answered by a drop. A officer's voice rose shrill. Lieutenant by the pitch. Cut short mid-order, crack ping, gurgle. The Japs fired back furious, Type 99s cracking in ragged volley. But it was blind fire, chewing their own thicket. Branches showered, leaves rustling like panic. Then the big one. A truck engine coughed to life deeper in. Supply rig probably, hauling ammo up the trail. Headlights flared brief, yellow beams slicing the mist before, boom! Secondary explosion, orange bloom lighting the canopy like dawn's false promise. Fuel or powder, didn't matter. The cab engulfed, tires popping, shadows scattering like roaches. Screams layered now. The wounded Japs calling for Mama or Emperor, lost in the roar. Hankowski whistled low. Ghost, Sarge. Got a goddamn ghost in their kitchen. The word hung, fitting too well. No squad strength, no sustained fire, no grenades volleying. Just one rifle, one thrower, picking them like ticks off a dog. The Japs rallied clumsy. A Type 92 heavy MG thumped to life on their line, water jacket sloshing as it traversed the dark. But before it could range, another grenade. Smoke this time? No, frag again. Whoosh boom in the nest. The gun's chatter dying to a cough. Crew spilling out, one dragging guts. The Sherman beside me stirred. Hale's 50 swiveling instinctive. Eyes on target? I called low. Negative grunts. But that's American iron. Hear the ping? Yeah, M1, no doubt. Springfield's bark and block clips feeding steady. The distraction rippled. Their probes on us halted cold. No more pops across the ford, no mortars whispering in. The air went electric, that rare shift when the hunter becomes quarry. Hayes keyed the net again. Static lighter now. Jammer's crew, maybe among the ghosts. Eagle. Viper. Enemy rear disrupted. Unknown friendly in thicket. Request we exploit. Affirmative crackled back, faint. Copy. Hold and observe. Fire mission on call. Observe. Easier said. But the breather landed like manna. Voss used it, crawling the wounded line. Fresh compresses on Carver's leg. A surette for the gut-shot kid from second who'd gone quiet. Stable-ish, Sarge, he muttered, hands red to the elbows. I need evac soon. Soon dawn, if the Zeros slept. I waved Hankowski. Cover the ford. Double taps only. He nodded, bipod resetting. The bars weighed a comfort in the muck. Ellis slotted beside him, Grand trembling slight. That ghost, think it's patrols. Stragglers? Kid's voice pitched hopeful. I shrugged, citing my own arc. Patrols don't solo a company. Smarter than that. But who? Battalion recon? Lost stick from the push. The pings continued. Crack ping, methodical, no rush. Each shot a punctuation. Officer down, gunner silenced, runner clipped mid-sprint. Japs howled frustration, their fire inward now. Nimbus hosing the undergrowth. Knee mortars lobbing wild into their own lines. Crump boom, friendly screams answering. A flare popped up. Japanese, the red starburst hanging lazy, silhouetting their scramble. Figures dashing cover to cover, packs jettisoned, rifles clutched like talismans. The truck's pyre burned steady, oily smoke curling thick, masking the far bank. Heat mirage danced, turning shadows to demons. Another ping, crack, and a flare gun clattered from a hand, the operator slumping mid-aim. Smart. Ghost knew the angles, stayed low, used the root balls and vines for baffle. Navajo trick? Wait, Begay. The wire kid lost since the hill. Nah, coincidence stretched thin, but the thought wormed. His eyes on the knob, spotting shadows we missed. If he'd looped back, trailed the patrol. No. Green froze under Artie. This was ice-water calm, yet the Grand sang on, bolt pinging like a metronome in hell. Hayes crawled my hole, mud to his elbows, voice urgent whisper. Malone, that's buying us time, maybe hours. We move the wounded now? Move. Risky. The ford's current a beast, rain-swollen, pulling at the litters. But staying? Artie inbound at dawn, bracketing us too if the Japs fed false grids. Negative, Captain. Wait the flare out. Ghosts got him dancing, let him tire. He nodded, Yale logic bending to gut. The boys sensed it, a ripple, hope, edging the fear. Ellis actually smiled, faint. Like the wind spirits, Sarge. My Grand said they fight quiet. Wind spirits. Kid was Cherokee or something. Stories for the foxhole. I grunted. Your Grand didn't hump this mud. But yeah, quiet winds. The chaos peaked. Japs counter-pushed their own rear. A squad strong, bayonets fixed. Yelling Bushido into the black. Garand answered, crack ping ping, dropping the point man, then the flank. The rest scattered, one lobbing a Type 97 grenade wild. Boom short, shrapnel hissing into the river. Our side held breath, no fire from us, letting the ghost work. Truck flames licked higher, ammo cooking off in pops like firecrackers. Tracers zipping random, lighting faces twisted in panic. An officer, Sergeant Major by the stripes glimpsed in the glow, rallied them, sword out, bellowing orders. Crack ping. He folded, blade clattering, the squad breaking for the defile's mouth. That's when the Artie shifted, our 105s, Hayes calling it on the jammer's grid. Whoosh, crump, shells marching the thicket, airbursts shredding canopy. Japs screamed, the ghost's work amplified. Branches crashing, earth fountain. The Type 92's remnants buried final. Smoke merged with the pyre, a wall now, choking the Ford's view. Breather extended, Japs pulled deep, licking wounds, their probes on us forgotten. Voss finished the line. Wounded secure, Sarge. Can move if you say. I nodded. Prep litters. We hump at the flare down. Link the road. The squad moved shadow quiet, rigging slings from ponchos and rifles, the wounded lashed gentle. Hankowski covered, bar sweeping slow. Ellis on drag, Garand high. Hayes took point with the Sherman 50. Hale's gunner threading bursts into the smoke for good measure. The ghost pinged once more. Crack. Final punctuation, then silence. Japs went still, the jungle swallowing their mutters. We'd gained yards, the wounded shifted rearward, under tank cover. Ammo pooled, shared, clips swapped. Ellis whispered, "What was it, Sarge? Angel?" I spat mud. "Angel with an M1. War's full of 'em, till it ain't." Dawn grayed the mist, flares fading like bad dreams. Battalion broke through. Fresh company, faces hard from the valley scrap. They took the line, medevac birds thumping in low, rotors chopping the steam. We loaded the wounded. Carver first, pale but breathing. The gut shot last. Voss's hand on his shoulder. Hayes debriefed the major. Trap sprung, ghost unknown. "Friendly fire in their ass, sir. Bought the hold." Major nodded, eyes on the pyre's embers across the river. "Good. Refit at CP. Dawn push tomorrow." We humped back, the trail a ghost itself. Mud-sucking boots, vines parting, reluctant. Thoughts on the pings. One man turning tide. Begay. Wire silent, but the hill's eyes? Nah. Coincidence. But the squad buzzed low. Hankowski slapping my back. "Preacher's got a guardian, boys." Ellis grinned. "Wine spirit." Hayes clapped my shoulder. Provisional brass heavy. "You held, Malone. Mike'd be proud." Proud. Yeah, but pride didn't fill clips or mend holes. CP loomed, tents sagging under rain, the air thick with coffee and regret. Sack called, but sleep dodged. Pings echoing, the ghost's shadow long. War's tricks, one rifle in the dark, chaos from calm. We'd breathe another day, but ghosts don't last. They fade with the light. And ours? Still out there, maybe. Or maybe just the jungle's lie. Dawn cracked the sky like a bad eggshell. Gray light bleeding through the mist that clung to the river like a fever sweat. It was still October 1944, and the ford had become our Alamo, a churned-up scar on the bank where the water lapped at the mud like it was tasting defeat. We'd held through the night thanks to that ghost in the thicket, but Holden's just another word for waiting to bleed out slow. The Japs had gone quiet after the Arty walked their lines. The 105s from battalion turning the D-file into a moonscape of craters and splintered bamboo. Smoke hung low, acrid and oily from the burned-out truck, carrying the faint char of cordite and something sweeter, like overripe fruit gone to rot. My foxhole was a slurry now. The walls slumped from the rain, and my grand lay across my lap. The woodstock slick with dew and fingerprint smears from the night's grips. 4 clips left. 32 rounds if I didn't miss, which I would under stress. Grenades? Down to the smoke I'd palmed for a Hail Mary. The squad was strung thin. Hankowski on the bar, his eyes red-rimmed but steady. Ellis, the Cherokee kid, clutching his M1 like a rosary. And Hayes in the CP scrap, keying the radio with a persistence that bordered on prayer. Viper 3 to Eagle Main. Sit rep hold. Casualties stable. Request evac and refit. Static answered, the jammer's ghost lingering. But a faint affirmative crackled back. Birds inbound, relief humping from the valley. The wounded lay lashed in ponchos under the Sherman's skirts, their breaths ragged syncopation to the river's gurgle. Carver's leg had swelled purple under the splint, Voss dosing him with the last syret. The gut shot from second was fever hot, mumbling about home in Ohio. We'd lost count of the hurts. Shrapnel grazes a twisted ankle from the drag. But the KIA weighed heavier. Mike's absence a hole in the command. Sammy Lee's boyish grin frozen in memory. Ruiz bobbed off to the sea. The ghost pings had bought us the night, those solitary crack pings turning Jap panic into our reprieve. But ghosts don't refill bandoliers or stitch flesh. I rubbed my jaw, stubble rasping like sand on steel, and sighted the far bank again. Nothing but smoke veils and vine tangles. The defile's mouth a black yawn, where the Type 92 had nested. Smart work, that Phantom. Picking the crew, the officers, the ammo hauler. One man, or so it seemed, with ears for the whispers and eyes for the dark. Begay flickered in my head again, the wire kid with his Navajo quiet. Sent him to the hill to die easy, and maybe he had snagged in vines, a silent end, or maybe not. Wars, maybes were the cruelest. Hankowski shifted, bipod scraping mud. Sarge, birds incoming, hear the thump? Yeah, faint rotor chop over the ridge, the Sikorsky's blades slicing the steam. Evac first, then refit. Hayes waved from the CP. Malone, cover the LZ. Japs might probe. Probe. Their specialty. Test the line, fade, repeat, till you crack. I nodded, waving the squad tight. Fields interlocking. Watch the smoke drift. No fire unless confirmed. The boys slotted in, Garands and the bar sweeping arcs. The Sherman's 50s traversing lazy with Hale's gunner on the trigger. The air thickened, that pre-dawn hush where sounds carry wrong. A twig snap across the river, too deliberate for monkey. Eyes left, I hissed. Hankowski traversed, the bar's barrel glinting dull. Nothing. False echo, maybe, or the ghost's last twitch. The chopper touched down awkward, skids sinking in the slurry, the pilot gunning to hold against the downdraft that whipped ponchos like flags. Med teams spilled out, corpsmen in olive drab, kits slung, faces masked against the mist. They went to work efficient, litters loaded, IVs rigged hasty. The wounded airlifted one by one into the bay. Carver went quiet under the morph, his eyes locking mine brief, gratitude mixed with a 1,000-yard glaze. Tell the boys, good fight. I nodded, throat tight. Rest easy, LT. We'll buy the beers in Frisco. The bird lifted, rotor wash scattering leaves, banking toward the beach where the hospital ships bobbed like white ghosts. 1 down, 5 to go. The second bird hummed in, but that's when the river betrayed us. A ripple unnatural, mid-current, where the ford shallowed to knee-deep. Contact water, Ellis yelped, his Garand cracking first. Ping as the bolt locked empty, too quick on the trigger. I swung left. There, breaking surface. A Jap sapper, head bobbing, pack bloated with demo charges, the current aiding his creep. Fanatic swim, silent till the splash. More followed. 3 shadows, low and desperate, Type 99's waterproofed in oilcloth, aiming the near bank. Knee mortars? No. Suicide run. Satchels. To kiss the Sherman's bellies. The platoon erupted. Bar roaring from Hankowski's hole. 30 call rounds stitching the water in geysers. Hayes' pie 45 popping from the CP. Deliberate. My M1 barked. Crack ping. Front sight on the lead swimmer's shoulder. The 30-06 punching him under. Bubbles trailing red. But the second closed fast. Arm cocking for the throw. Satchel dripping. Grenade him, I yelled, but my smoke was palmed wrong. Too slow. It happened then, like thunder from clear sky. A crack ping from the far tree line, sharp over the din. The thrower's arm jerked mid-arc, the satchel splashing harmless beside him, charge fizzling wet. Another ping, crack. And the third sapper folded, face in the foam. The lead, mine, surfaced thrashing. But a final shot, ping, stilled him. Headshot clean through the current's mask. Silence slammed down, broken only by the rotor thump and our breaths heaving. The squad gawked, muzzles smoking. What the Hankowski started, bar traversing the smoke. Hayes keyed frantic. Eagle, Viper, sappers neutralized. Unknown fire support across river. But I knew. That ping. The ghost, crossing over. Yeah, cover! I bellowed. Dropping low as return fire cracked the air. Type 99s from the defile wild and high. Bullets zipping the mist like hornets. The Japs had spotted the source. A Panther? No, wait, wrong theater. Here it was a Type 97 medium tank. Their Chiha rumbling from the thicket, treads churning mud, the 47mm turret swiveling hungry toward our bank. Smoke parted. Squat hull, sloped armor, the diesel growl cutting the rotor. Flank shot from the ghost, maybe, but it pressed. Coke's machine gun chattering, rounds pinging off the Sherman's skirts. Hale's beast answered. Coke's 30, hosing the turret. The 75 whoosh booming around short, cratering the bang. Loader, he! Hale yelled. But the Chiha traversed, main gun barking. Crack, shell, screaming past the lead Sherman, bursting in the tree line behind, shrapnel whispering overhead. Panic edged in. The evac bird lifted hasty, wounded half-loaded, banking hard as tracers chased it. The second chopper hovered reluctant, pilot gunning for altitude. Our line buckled, Ellis firing wild, clips pinging empty. Hankowski's bar overheating, barrel walking hot. Hayes rallied, "Concentrate fire, disable the tracks." But the tank closed, water sheeting off its glacis, the crew buttoned tight. It was endgame. One good shot, and we'd be swimming with Ruiz. My mind flashed tactical. Angle the shot, skirt the turret ring, but from here, suicide. The Cokes raked our holes, dirt fountaining, one round clipping Ellis's helmet, spinning him down dazed. Then the miracle or the payback. From the smoke's heart, movement, a figure low crawling the shallows, not Jap, not ours, copper skin gleaming wet, Garand slung tight, a coil of wire dragging like a lifeline. Begay, the kid alive, eyes locked on the tank's rear as he bellied through the current, silent as the river's ghost. How? The hill, the wire. He'd looped, shadowed their rear, become the phantom. Navajo blood, seeing the whispers in the vines, hearing the diesel's cough before it turned. He surfaced at the bank, opposite our line, mud to his chin, and vanished into the ferns, flank on the flank. The tank lurched, turret questing, but the ghost struck. A crack ping from the tree line, bolt slamming, round glancing the optics, driver blind a hair. Then chaos. From the smoke, grenades, 2 frags arcing perfect, spoons pinging free, boom boom, bursting at the rear deck, shrapnel scoring the engine grill, black smoke belching thick, the Cheehaw slewed, treads spinning mud. But Begay was there, up from the ferns, knife flashing, slashing fuel lines in a spray of diesel. The crew bailed, hatch popping, figures spilling, rifles up. His grand sang, crack ping, dropping the gunner mid-leap. Another ping for the loader, leg folding. The commander bolted for the defile, crack, and crumpled, sword clattering. The driver last, hands high, but Begay's shot winged him. Non-lethal, a Navajo mercy? Or just the angle? The tank died groaning, flames licking the turret. Secondary pops from the ammo. Japs swarmed from the slits, 10, 12 rifles probing the smoke. But our fire met him. Hankowski's bar roaring renewed. Hayes' platoon volleying and block clips like thunder. The Sherman's joined. Hale's Coke stitching the rush. The Mobile 175 booming point blank, hull shattering a bunker mouth. Begay emerged then from the pyre's edge. Dirty, shirt torn, a graze on his arm seeping but ignored. He waded the ford deliberate. Garand ported, the wire spool empty at his feet. Water sluiced off him, helmet lost somewhere, black hair plastered. The squad stared, muzzles dropping. Ellis sat up, helmet dented. Holy! It's the engine! Hankowski lowered the bar, steam rising from the barrel. Kid? You? He hit our bank, boots sucking mud, and approached the line steady, no stagger, no boast. Eyes met mine over the sights, not pleading, just reporting. The radio crackled. Battalion clear, relief cresting the ridge. But in that beat, the world narrowed. The ghost made flesh, the burden lifted. Sarge, he said, voice even, Ford's clear. Tanks toast, engine cooked. Their rears broke, pulled back to the valley. Simple, like handing off a watch. No, I got him, or hero shine, just the dew. I stood slow, Garand slung, taking him in. Mud caked, but unbowed. The M1 scarred fresh, clips nested right now. The Grays wept, but he ignored it. Voss already moving with the kit. Hayes approached, hand out. Private, Begay? That was you. Kid nodded, wiping water from the bolt. Wire held till the hill. Trailed their patrol back, heard the tank rev from the vines. Waited for the shot. Heard. Saw. The Navajo way. Forest talking. Wind carrying lies from the branches. He'd soloed their kitchen. Pings for the officers, grenades for the guns, knife for the quiet kills. Realistic, no Rambo rush. Patience, the tracker's art, turning green fear to steel. The squad closed in, hands clapping his shoulders gentle. Hankowski's paw thumping, Ellis grinning wide. Wine spirit, my ass. You're the real deal, Tommy. Laughter rippled, brittle but true. The first since Mike. Relief thumped in, jeeps growling up the trail, fresh faces and crates of clips. But I hung back, weighing him head to toe. No boy now, the freeze burned out in the dark. The burden? Paid in full, with change. He met my gaze again, waiting, no words needed. I nodded, short and sharp, the highest coin I had. Eyes held a beat, respect mirrored, silent as the pings. Later, at the refit CP, tense up, hot chow steaming from the field kitchen, we circled a fire pit, deadwood crackling under the easing rain. New blood integrated, stories swapping over spam and crackers. Begay sat quiet, arm bandaged, nursing a canteen of water. The boys pulled him in. Texas ghost story twisted to include him. Hayes buying the first round in Manila Promise. Me? I pulled the flask from my pack, silver, dented from Sicily, filled with bourbon swiped from a supply drop. Elsie'd hate it, but nights like this needed the burn. I waded through the circle, the fire's glow painting faces warm, and stopped at his knee. Private. He looked up, no flinch. I extended the flask, metal cool in my palm. Drink. You've earned the wait. He took it, fingers brushing mine, steady now, and tipped it back, the swallow deliberate. No cough, no grin, just the nod back, equal. The squad hushed, sensing the right. From green to brother, the flasks pass, sealing it. Bourbon's bite warmed my gut as I recapped, thoughts settling. War's grinder takes, but spits gems sometimes. Begay, Tommy leaned back, eyes on the flames. The jungle's whispered, distant now. We'd push the valley come morn, MacArthur's tab still running. But with eyes like his, we'd see it through. The fire popped, sparks rising like stars, and for once the night felt less like a thief